As many of you are no doubt aware, League of Legends is not available solely on just PC. A while back during the pandemic, they went about releasing a mobile sister title called League of Legends Wild Rift, a version of the game tailor-made for iOS and Android players to capture more of the mobile gaming market. The differences in how you play the game, despite the two games being conceptually identical, led to their respective player bases being mutually exclusive for the most part. You rarely see one player actively engaging in both games. Furthermore, with the differences in hardware and whatnot, as well as the modernity of Wild Rift's engine, the games play noticeably different from one another, even going so far as to have actual disparities in mechanics or even champion abilities. I myself don't play Wild Rift, but I did make a few videos discussing the game, mainly touching on ability differences, like how, for example, Teemo's W in Wild Rift is accompanied by a vain tumble sort of dash. But there was something very interesting I found out just recently. Wild Rift has their own exclusive champion. Her name is Norra, who just came out this past winter. I've only heard of her before in like TFT, but I didn't realize she was actually a playable character in League. Suffice to say, I was thoroughly curious about her gameplay because up until Norra, every single champion added to Wild Rift was first in League, making her the first and only Wild Rift exclusive champion. Now mind you, it has been stated that the development team is trying to get Norra into League itself, but at the moment have pushed it to the back burner in favor of working more concernedly on the new League Next initiative. But you know what, I figured this would make for a really cool video to look at a champion that's only in Wild Rift and offer my thoughts on how her design would pan out for the main title, and whether or not she should join League proper at all. Like I said, broadly speaking, you'd be hard-pressed to call Wild Rift and League the same game. The premise and objectives are identical, yes, but so many factors differ between the two from an infrastructural standpoint that, functionally speaking, a League player would be very thrown off by the changes between not just the game systems, but even the champions. Many cast members had to be adjusted to be ported over to Wild Rift, as evident by matters such as the level cap being 15 in this game instead of 18, or that passive abilities like Vain Silver Bolts or Vice Denting Blows have actives on them, things of that nature. Riot's official statement on Norra was that they, unsurprisingly, want her to be added to the parent title, but due to Norra being designed around the scope of Wild Rift, there are likely to be challenges in backporting her to League, since as you know, the original game is made on a significantly more dated engine than the new one, which was made via Unity. It'd be kinda like trying to make Pokemon Platinum on Game Boy Advance, essentially. Is this more of a software capability / coding thing, or is it also a question of gameplay and narrative continuity? Well, you know how Yuumi in her book are trying to find a specific person whom she calls her master, that just so happens to be Norra. And given Yuumi's rather contentious history, not to mention Yordles in general being known for their annoying gameplay, I wouldn't put it past them if Riot was also referring to making Norra not so irritating to fight. Despite Wild Rift having a competitive scene, Prevailing Wisdom recognizes the game as a whole to be a more casual version of League in light of mobile titles carrying a more casual-focused connotation. So perhaps they conceptualized Norra's moveset with the expectation that they could get away with a bit more whimsical, possibly eccentric movesets. Although I'm willing to bet it's more likely than not just a software capability thing. Anyway, let's go to Norra's abilities. Archetype-wise, she's classified as an artillery mid-laner with a high focus on damage, low utility and durability, and a mid-level difficulty curve. Artillery mages have been on the come up lately, what with the recent additions of Mel and Hui, but if you watched my video on artillery mages a long time ago, you'll find that trying to conceive unique ways to shoot stuff at champions from a far distance doesn't give you a whole lot of options. Norra's passive is beloved Trinkets. Periodically, anytime she damages an enemy with her abilities, they scatter a bunch of what I can only describe as mines on the ground, where if an enemy champion steps on it, they take damage. Additionally, anytime Norra's basic abilities damage a champion, it refunds a portion of the cooldown of the effect, so you can cast it more frequently. A rather interesting passive for an artillery mage. We do have minefield-like abilities such as Talia and Ziggs, but those are set cast ranges and areas of effect. Any sporadic minefield placements typically come in the form of traps like Shaco boxes, tea mushrooms, and the like. Now conceptually, I'm a fan of this passive. In a way, it makes her a poke mage and an area control mage at the same time. Even if the mines don't do that much damage individually, no one wants to willingly step on something harmful to them, even if the consequences are ultimately negligible. That brief moment of hesitation can do wonders in disrupting enemy momentum and tempo. Next we have her Q, Memory Search. Charging for up to 2.5 seconds, Norra fires a skill shot that explodes upon hitting the first enemy champion. Basically, it appears to be a Hui QQ or a Karma Q that channels like a Xerath Q. But unlike any of those abilities, if Norra throws a full charge, she gets punted backwards in the same fashion as Aurora's E. Also, the enemy champion that got struck by a full power Q causes all nearby trinkets to lock onto them, turning into homing missiles. Very good call. One of the big reasons why I think random mines haven't been added to the game is because it makes the champion's DPS inconsistent. That is, unless they have a way to manually redirect the mines or forcibly detonate them onto a champion. By itself, it's a neat little thing. Because of the secondary component, my guess is that you want to cast Memory Surge at the end of your rotation when there's already trinkets on the ground, or maybe an auto-primes trinkets that spawn from the queue itself. Either way, the jump back also adds an element of safety given Norra slows down quite a bit while charging. Bear in mind, the numbers are all based on Wild Rift, so I wouldn't freak out too much over the mana cost, cooldown, range, damage, and whatnot. Theoretically, it makes her a bread and butter poke option. Assuming the trinkets that spawn from landing the Q also count as being primed, there's quite a bit of power packed into Memory Surge. However, the fact that unlike Xerath's Arcano Pulse, Memory Surge realistically only hits one champion, it's effectively a more concentrated amount of damage as opposed to AoE. If the enemy team has a tank or a frontline base, they can soak up the damage and the mines. Next up we have Norra's W, Journey to Nowhere. Yeah, the challenge of backporting her to League is 100% a software capability thing when you look at this ability. Norra marks an area on the ground that sits there for a couple seconds, upon which any enemy that steps on the portal gets transported to the Spirit Realm for a small bit of time, wherein they're silenced and heavily slowed for the duration before appearing back out. Basically, Norra has an AoE Mordekaiser ultimate. Now, based on what we know about the infinite bugs caused by Mordekaiser's Death Realm, you can imagine how troublesome adding Journey to Nowhere would be for the spaghetti code that is PC League of Legends. But that aside, at a surface glance you might be wondering what the use of this ability even is. It's not like Norra or any of her teammates can get inside the Spirit Realm to 1v1 the way Mordekaiser's ultimate can. So how do they benefit from this? People tend to overlook the other significant utility component of Mordekaiser's ultimate. It traps enemies in a predictable space. Even if Mordekaiser can't kill the guy he ults, what matters is that his team can position accordingly to finish him off once they reappear, since the victim is confined to a circular ring. For that matter, we have Vars' Tempered Fate, a non-consensual Zanya's Hourglass inflicted on the enemy team or your team, widely considered one of the potential best or worst playmaking ultimates in the game. Norra's Journey to Nowhere is by all accounts a diet version of Tempered Fate. Enemies caught within are heavily slowed and silenced, meaning they're essentially stuck in a very small field of movement, during which Norra's teammates can capitalize on the fact that enemy champions will be entirely unaware of what's going on during the 2 seconds and change they're in Brazil to surprise them when they come back out. Also, lest you forget, Norra scatters mines around the area every so often, meaning the targets caught in Journey to Nowhere might accidentally step on a mine upon returning back out. You know, for a champion Riot considers to have very little utility, there's a surprising amount to this attack than you would think. It can be a trapping tool, a stalling tool, and a zoning tool at the same time. Let's move on to her E, Threads of Homecoming. Planting Qs on targets affected by her mines or Threads of Homecoming cause them to take additional max health damage. Doesn't seem like a lot though, so my earlier statement about frontliners being able to face tankers still stands. Norra creates a converging portal very similar to Malzahar's Q that damages all enemies within and inflicts them with a debuff that slows them for 2 seconds and doubles their size for 4 seconds. Notable about this size debuff is that it proportionally expands their hitbox, subsequently making it easy for them to get hit by other skill shots and abilities like Stepping on Our Mines or Journey to Nowhere, along with anything else Norra's team might have. Given the Trinkets can also apply this debuff, Norra also practically attains a way to persistently slow targets. I like this move. In fact, I appreciate the deviant nature of Norra's kit as a whole. Not gonna lie, when I found out she was Yuumi's master, I was like, oh no, is she gonna be as obnoxious as her? But frankly, Norra's pretty chill so far. She reminds me of Bard, someone who brings utility in a non-conventional way, but depending on team comp or application, that utility can matter so much more. I'm sure most people would rather just have a stun or a root, but I like that they're trying something different with Norra. Although not different in the sense of frustrating or overloaded. Both Norra's W and E can backfire in certain cases. For example, an assassin on a team might try to one-shot the enemy ADC, only for them to get booped away by Norra's W. There's some risk to using this ability carelessly. Threads of Homecoming can also work against you by making the frontline even bigger, which inadvertently lets them do their job of blocking attacks for their team even more efficiently. I can see why they gave her a mild difficulty rating. She doesn't play like Xerath or Ziggs where you just spam your abilities whenever they come off cooldown. You have to be a lot more careful with how you go about it. She really doesn't seem all that frustrating either. For one, there's no hard crowd control in her kit. Journey to Nowhere could get annoying, sure, but I've seen much worse. The biggest thing about her I see so far is just the fact that she's an artillery mage with a dashback. Getting to her is the challenge, but once you do, she doesn't have an easy way of shaking you off outside of her W. Let's not forget her ultimate though, Portalpalooza. Within 10 seconds, you can recast her ultimate 4 times over, causing her to roll a ball that damages all enemies in the way. How it works is that you create a big circle in an area and then you paintbrush one side of the circle to the other to cause the ball to roll in that line. Yeah, this ability 100% needs to be adjusted for a PC version because on mobile you can use your finger to swipe from one end to the other. To be fair, we do have other directional pointing abilities already, Victor Death Ray and Talia Seismic Shove to name a few, which I'm assuming they can do the same thing here, but either way, this is definitely one of the wackiest abilities I've seen. It is cool, it's a really cute ability that can do a lot of potential damage, even turning it into a minigame of sorts. Typically, when you think of artillery mages like Xerath or even long-range backline firepower like Jhin, the source of the attack originates from their position, but for Norra, the sources of most of her attacks, with the exception of her Q, stem from different angles. You have her W being a pool, her E being a side-to-side type thing, and if you're in the circle of her ultimate, she can literally cause the ball to roll from any direction. If you get hit by all 4 casts of Portalpalooza, I can imagine the damage to be quite significant. As cool as it may sound, this honestly feels a bit overpowered. The ball is quite big and it travels rather quickly. If you're in a mobile champion, I don't see how you can easily sidestep all the attacks, especially given they can come from any angle and they also slow for a bit. The safest place to be in her ultimate is the center, where you have the most amount of time to see where the ball is coming from. But the center is also the most dangerous place to be in a teamfight. In her defense, just like Xerath, Jhin, and other ultimates of that variety, Norra is completely vulnerable during this time. Also, you can see where she is to attack her and interrupt her channel. The range of this ability is not far enough to be considered semi-global, meaning it's much easier to intercept Norra than it is to reach a Jhin or Xerath while they're channeling, so there is counterplay to it. After looking at her abilities, I can understand what Riot meant by the challenge of implementing her in League proper. 3 of her abilities are on the unusual side: her W, which can lead to a ton of bugs, her E, which can also lead to a ton of bugs because hitbox adjustments can be fickle, and while we technically had the capacity to implement an ultimate like Portalpalooza with the means we already have, it will require back-end work to make it smooth and easy to process. As a champion though, I think Norra's pretty well made. Yes, being an artillery mage is annoying in and of itself, but the range of applications of Norra's kit are more on the creative end of things than frustrating. She doesn't invalidate anything like Mel, she can't one-shot you like Zoe, not unless you get hit by everything. And there is a possibility for counterproductive uses of 2 of her abilities. Again, Journey to Nowhere if used carelessly can hurt your team if you unintentionally booped a person away from like a thresh hook or Darius trying to get an ultimate reset. Ultimately, Norra looks like a combination of artillery and control mage. What she lacks in pure DPS, she makes up for with area manipulation and zoning pressure. I appreciate their frankly successful attempt at thinking outside the box. Like I said in my artillery mage video, you can only design long-range attacks in so many ways before they all start to overlap with each other. So, Norra having all these unique ways to mess you up definitely raises interesting questions on what potential synergies you can have with other characters. Like, imagine Norra trapping people in W while Sion is charging up a Q to hit them, or an enemy champion stepping on a mine and becoming bigger, which makes it easy for, say, Nidalee to land Qs on them. Personally, I think the increased hitbox size is the most interesting part of her kit. It makes you wonder what kind of champions would want to have that debuff. Although, speaking of synergy, it's not obligatory, but I find it to be kind of a missed opportunity that Norra and Yuumi don't really play all that well together. I kind of figured, being master and pupil, that Norra and Yuumi would be a cool combination, but they really aren't. Then again, I still stand by the notion that Yuumi should be deleted from the game altogether. So in conclusion, do I think Norra should be added to the main game? I don't see why not. This is easily one of the most intriguing ways I've seen an artillery mage conceptualized. The hazard is the sheer number of bugs Norra could cause with her abilities, but from a gameplay point of view, one of the more inoffensive designs I'd say. I don't see Norra being particularly impossible to deal with, despite Yordles notoriously excelling at saying "f*** you" to certain types of champions. But what do you guys think? Do you consider Norra to be frustrating, or do you like her design? Let me know in the comments down below. That'll be all for today, so if you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a like and subscribed. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other champion first impressions videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.